I know I am not in Jerusalem when I'm introduced as Mr. Blum. That is the first time this has ever happened. And I insist that no one call me Mr. Blum. Even if you are like 6 years old, I am Brian, that's it. Okay? I get that for living in Israel for 30 years. Okay? Thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight. It's an amazing turnout. This is the first of what's going to be about 10 different stops in the next 2 weeks in California to talk about this book that I wrote, this book right here called Totaled: The Billion-Dollar Crash of the Startup That Took on Big Auto, Big Oil, and the World. And let me just start by asking, who in the audience heard of the company before tonight or before reading about that this was going to be, who heard of Better Place? Okay, who did not hear about Better Place? Okay, don't worry, because I will explain everything and it will come alive and you'll hear the story. I won't give everything away because I do want you to buy some books and we have lots of them, so don't be shy and I'll sign them. So before I talk about myself, I just want to lay the stage for a moment. The company we're going to talk about tonight, the company that I wrote a book about, was an amazing story in Israel. We call it Startup Nation 2.0 because if you read the book Startup Nation by Saul Singer and Dan Signor, you probably remember that in the first chapter, in the very introduction, a company called Better Place, an electric car company, was featured as like the next big thing, amazing company with going to change the world, rid the world of gasoline and pollution, and make the world drive electric. And that's what the opening of that book was. And the company, I'm not giving anything away because it's in the title, it's called The Crash of the Billion-Dollar Startup. The company raised nearly $1 billion and then crashed. So this has got a sad ending, but there's a lot to be learned, and it's really kind of the second part of the book Startup Nation. What happened to that company at the beginning of the book Startup Nation? So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. But even if you don't like or care so much about electric cars or technology, this is a book filled with stories and amazingly colorful characters, and there's a spy scandal in the middle that involved the Chinese and hackers, and there's affairs, and there's maybe corruption, and there's all kinds of things. It's kind of, people describe it as more like a technology whodunit, an Agatha Christie kind of mystery. What killed this company, Better Place? So I am a business and technology journalist. I have lived in Israel. We originally got there over 30 years ago, but we made Aliyah in 1994. So 33 years ago. And I write for a number of publications. You can see some of my clients include Haaretz, and you may have read my articles about Israeli startups in Israel 21C. You may have read my articles about religion, culture, and politics in the Jerusalem Post. I write for a trade publication called Classified Intelligence Report, which is not about classified information, but is actually about the classified advertising industry, so Craigslist and Cars.com and whatnot. That's published by the AIM Group. And before that, I was a vice president at Converse, which is a telecommunications provider. I was an entrepreneur in residence at Jerusalem Global Ventures, and my company Netafor raised a few $1 million in the first dot-com rage in the late 1990s. So I've done a whole bunch of things, including raising 3 children and doing this crazy thing called making Aliyah. So that's me. This is my second book, actually. My previous book was called Interactive Media: Essentials for Success. And it was about the CD-ROM business. So if you remember in the early 90s, everybody who was doing cool things with technology was developing multimedia CD-ROMs. So I threw this slide in here. It's actually important to the story. I know it seems like we're talking about electric cars and Israel. What does this have to do with anything? Well, here's the reason it's on here. I wrote this book in 1995, and at that point, CD-ROMs were the rage, as I said. I included one page about this new technology called The World Wide Web. The book came out in January of 1996. By March of 96, everyone had forgotten about CD-ROMs, and all that mattered was the web. And I had one page. So my book was kind of like a really interesting, important book, but the timing was all wrong. It came out at the wrong time. And that's kind of what we're going to hear in the course of tonight about what happened to Better Place. Great idea, perhaps the wrong timing. So I mentioned that they made an electric car, but that's not entirely true. Better Place was developing an electric car infrastructure. So they weren't building the car itself. They contracted with Renault, which doesn't sell anymore in the United States, but made a car called the Fluence, and they made an electric version of the Fluence that Better Place then sold in Israel, but they didn't make it, and Renault made most of the money. And Better Place made the charging infrastructure. That meant putting in charge spots and building a unique system to address range anxiety. So, okay, another question. Who has an electric car in the room? One person, two people. Okay, I know you have a Tesla because we talked about this before. How far did your Tesla go?
270 miles.
Okay, and yours? You have a hybrid. Okay, that doesn't count.
Okay, that's
You have a
hybrid.
hybrid. No, okay. So for a pure electric car, her Tesla goes 270 miles or so today on a charge. But in 2007, when Better Place, this scrappy little Israeli company, was getting started, the best technology that we had would get about 100 miles on a charge. Okay, and that causes what we call in the electric car industry range anxiety, where you're always worried you're going to run out of juice at some place in the middle of nowhere on a dirt road, and there's not going to be a charging station nearby. And what are you going to do? Because you can't like just pull into a gas station because they're not, there's no gasoline tank. It's not a hybrid. So the people behind Better Place said, what if we built a system of not charging by plugging in your car, but actually switching the battery. This was the Better Place idea, is that instead of just charging your car up when it was running out of juice, you would pull into a switching station, and this switching station it looked kind of like a gas station or a car wash. You would drive your car in, and it would pull your battery out, your empty battery, put a brand new battery in, and off you would go in 5 minutes. And that addressed the problem of range anxiety using the technology that existed in 2007. Because today you can drive farther, but you couldn't back then. Nothing could do that. Even Tesla, in those days, didn't really have a great battery. The first Teslas didn't. And Tesla was a company that at that point was just about bankrupt. And Better Place was rising fast based on its ideas. So, in order to show you what the switching station concept worked like, we actually have a video here.
The electric car is the future of transportation in a world free from dependence on oil. Better Place took that concept further and developed the battery switch model, the world's most innovative and convenient way to allow electric car drivers to travel long distances without having to take long breaks to recharge. The battery switch is performed in a network of battery switch stations, which are located at strategic spots, much like traditional gas stations. From the moment you enter the switch station, advanced robots are standing by with a fresh battery. The fully automated system developed by Better Place works simultaneously to switch your depleted battery with a fully charged one. You don't have to exit the car, and you are constantly updated along the process, which takes even less time than it took to fill up your car with gas. Drive, Switch, and Go makes the electric car suitable for everyone. A car that can go anywhere conveniently and affordably.
We got a car that's more convenient. It goes as long as you want. It's not limited by range. It's not limited by time. It's cheap to buy. It actually keeps its value. The side effects, you save the world.
Drive, Switch, Go. It's as simple as that.
Fun. Okay, so people would drive in, and it was like an experience. You would bring your friends, and by the way, we owned one of these cars, so I'll get to that in a moment. But it was it was an adventure, you know, to take your friends to the switch station and watch the robots come in. It was great. Let me talk about the people behind Better Place. So really, the story of Better Place is a little bit of a kind of a bromance between these two guys. Shai Agassi on the left there, and Idan Ofer on the right. Shai Agassi was the CEO, and he was the wunderkind, the entrepreneur genius who came up with the idea. He was part of the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leaders group that met every year in Davos, Switzerland. And they were charged the year that he started with, there were 100 young global leaders with coming up with an idea that would make the world a better place. And some people worked on healthcare, and some people worked on other topics. And he and another guy named Andre Tzaror had the idea to get the world off oil, and they actually named the company Better Place based on the charge they were given in Davos, Switzerland. So now, Idan Ofer is well, he still is, but at the time he was Israel's wealthiest man. He was worth about $4 billion at the time these two met. He then was worth about $6.5 billion by the time I was writing the book.